Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and as I've often said many times in the past, there are numerous ways in which a developer might find themselves being inducted into these not-so-hallowed halls, but one surefire method that tops the list is when that developer engages in outright theft of someone else's intellectual property. And just such a thing has happened with a developer who goes by Terry Brash, not to be confused with Terry Crews, and the game Wildcard that he recently posted onto Steam. And put bluntly, Wildcard does not belong to him. It belongs to an HTML5 indie developer who goes by Kindanice, which is, well, kind of a nice person, which is nice. Yeah, I'll be honest, I tried thinking up some sort of pun there, but nothing really works, so I'll just move on from it. Either way, let's go back through the history of Terry, not that one, a little bit and see what's going on here. But before we do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, share your love of bacon down in the comments, and if you like the thought of me being able to live and do things like, pay for groceries, consider checking out the SidAlpha Patreon or Ko-Fi, because food is kinda nice. Yeah, no, sorry, there's just no pun that's going to work there. Either way, check those out down in the description of this video. So, who is Terry, not that one, and how did he steal Kindanice's game? Well, Terry, not that one, is your latest bog-standard, low-effort Steam developer that has begun their spammy little career of shoving out multiple games within an extremely short period of time. It started with Tiny Survivors, a small little bullet hell of a game that was released in late December. But even then, with his first title released, allegations of theft were already surfacing as people were claiming that Terry, not that one, had stolen Tiny Rogues by RubyDev. So upon seeing that, I reached out to RubyDev via email, and they were kind enough to provide me with a little bit of context in that regard, where they said that Terry, not that one, seemed like a nice person in all of their interactions, and RubyDev said he came to me and was like, "I'm such a huge fan of Tiny Rogues, I made this game. Is that cool with you?" Not direct quote. Now it feels like just one of the things he does to cover his ass. RubyDev also pointed me to a couple of social media posts where he was responding to discussions surrounding Terry, not that one's little escapade of video game theft, where one person said, "I used to be in communication with Terry and he told me that Tiny Rogues used an asset pack, which he found and used too. I was never able to find the asset pack though." To which RubyDev responded with, "Half true. 1. Tiny Rogues isn't actually using these assets anymore. 2. The stamina pip is not included in this. 3. I think the color of the heart was changed both in Tiny Rogues and Tiny Survivors. I don't know, I don't really hold value in the pixels of my UI either way. Yoinking an entire game is a different story though, and to be honest, after this yoinkage, I also feel worse about being so okay with Tiny Survivors. I think one of the reasons I don't really care is with 16 by 16 icons, there is really only so much you can do to display a heart, a stack of gold, or stamina arrow. Like, in my head, there isn't much expression of creativity involved in those instances." RubyDev also emailed me again a few minutes later stating that it seemed an original draft of Terry, not that one's Tiny Survivors might have been more than just a similar UI. And for all of that help, I would like to take a moment to thank RubyDev for taking time out of their day to respond to me. So if you're interested in roguelike bullet hells, consider checking out RubyDev's Tiny Rogues. It's sitting at a 94% positive user reviews on Steam, so people really seem to enjoy it, and I'll link that down below. But moving on, the next item on Terry, not that one's list is Gun Run, an as yet unreleased game on Steam with a demo for people to try out. Now, not much is known here, but it definitely leans into the bullet hell aspect, but with deck building being introduced as well. However, if this game is borrowed or stolen from someone else as a foundation like we saw with Tiny Survivors, likely stealing its foundation from RubyDev's Tiny Rogues, I can't find it. But then we have Terry, not that one, in his latest game, which decided to do away with all pretense and lean into outright theft, and that is with Wildcard, where Wildcard is, as I said before, directly stolen from Kindanice and their HTML5 game Dire Decks, which has been available on itch.io for free for quite a long time. And it's not just merely substantially similar. It is a direct ripoff with some UI changes and effects additions, much like we saw with early incarnations of Terry, not that one's Tiny Survivors, and it's ripping off of RubyDev's Tiny Rogues. And the similarities were not lost on Kindanice either, who posted onto social media the following. "Hi everyone, Terry, not that one, copied my game Dire Decks and is releasing it on Steam under a different name without my permission. I've tried to get him to take the game down, but he is unwilling to do so. Not sure what to do in this situation. So I commented on Kindanice's Twitter post that they should consider filing a DMCA takedown of Terry Not That One's stolen game. I then later reached out via email to Kindanice, and they informed me that they are uncomfortable with the DMCA takedown process as it requires them to divulge personal information that they're not comfortable with providing, as that information would be sent to Terry Not That One. Now, I did inform Kindanice that if they have the means, then they might have the option of using an attorney as a proxy for the DMCA takedown request, but whether or not the juice is worth that kind of squeeze would be up to Kindanice to decide. I made sure they were aware that that option exists, but ultimately it is their call entirely. But either way, Wildcard is, without a doubt, a stolen version of Dire Decks with some of Terry Not That One's bullet hell animations added onto it and some other minor UI inclusions to make himself feel better. So for Kindanice's sake, I would advise you to go support their game on itch.io. It's free after all, and a link to both Kindanice's game as well as RubyDev's game will be in the pinned comment down below. Kindanice did inform me that they've been working on getting Dire Decks onto Steam and are waiting on Valve's approval, so make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that as well, and I'll see if I can do a follow-up video on that when it does end up releasing. But that said, let's get back to Terry Not That One. Now, Sean Joy, a fellow content creator, and me were musing about potential motives for why this little thief might have been behaving the way that they are. Sean pointed out that it felt like two very different people, but I don't entirely agree with that after learning a bit more from RubyDev and reviewing the available content. It would seem that this thief has always been a bit of a cheeky one, and I suspect that his getting away with what he did with Tiny Survivor emboldened him to a certain extent. Why? Well, my first guess is delusions of grandeur with not a lot of planning. The reason I think that is because of one link that RubyDev sent me where in November of last year, Terry Not That One said, quote, "I'm also on the games till I die road, trying to figure out how to get rich AF while doing it." So I suspect that Terry Not That One settled on the idea of, why spend all the time and effort developing your own game from the ground up when you can just use someone else's as a foundation, slap a little paint on it, throw in some UI elements, and boom, you've got a ready-to-release project. Which would also explain dumping out 3 Steam store pages in half a year. But if that is the plan, well, it's a stupid one, first off, because people will invariably figure out when you are stealing someone else's work and they will let that person know. And when it comes to direct and deliberate theft like we see here, no one will be willing to give you a chance after you do something like that. It shows that you, Terry, are an utter incompetent. You are a fool, a thief, pawn scum that needs to be scraped off of the shoes of your betters. And even if Kindanice lives up to their developer moniker and doesn't sue your ass into oblivion, the vast majority of Steam users who give small and startup devs a chance won't touch anything you shove out the door with a 10-foot pole. And it is because of scum like Terry Not That One that this video series even exists. So, welcome to the Dirty Devs, Terry Brash. I hope you enjoy your stay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.